Hello, and welcome to the Oregon Business Matters podcast, brought to you by Oregon Business and Industry, your statewide chamber of commerce. At Oregon Business Matters, we focus on insights, issues, and initiatives that impact Oregonians' shared prosperity and the state's economic health. I'm Angela Wilhelms, President and CEO of OBI, and your host here at Oregon Business Matters. And today, I'm in Portland talking with Matthew Drake, CEO of Mount Hood Meadows Ski Resort. Matthew's father, Franklin, established Mount Hood Meadows in 1966, and Matthew has served as CEO for more than 15 years now. Mount Hood Meadows is Oregon's second largest ski resort behind Mount Bachelor and Bend, but it's the state's largest independently run ski resort and the closest to Portland. Obviously, recreation is an important part of Oregon's economy, both for the local population that frequents places like Mount Hood Meadows, but also for the tourists that come to Oregon for this experience. And despite all of the natural advantages and opportunities, this industry is facing some challenges. And we wanted to make sure today we had an opportunity to chat about both those opportunities and those challenges. So Matthew, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Well, thank you, Angela, for the opportunity.
Great. Well, and we timed this, I think, very well. We're getting ready to head into ski season. And we've got some snow now, so that's a good start to the season, I would say.
Yeah, really exciting. Had snow this weekend. Sales are brisk, and our team is actively getting ready to begin to operate just as soon as we have a little bit more snowpack on the ground.
Great. Well, why don't you start by just giving us a high-level history of Mount Hood Meadows? I find this so fascinating, and I think most people who know the brand and know the name and have been on the mountain with you don't really know the history. So how has the resort evolved since its establishment in the 60s?
Well, really it evolved through just the hard work and the will of my mom and dad and the early investors in the company. We opened in January of 1968, and the company has just continued to grow and evolve since that time. A large part of that is our business model is we have reinvested our earnings back into the resort from day one, and we only distribute that which our investors need to pay their taxes annually. And we just continue to strive to provide the best operating experience that we can for our guests, a safe work environment for not only our guests, but particularly our team. And by focusing on the experience and focusing on our team, we have been able to overcome, low snow years, extreme weather events, macroeconomic cycles, and so forth. And we sit here today, a thriving, healthy organization, not without our challenges, of course, but I think we're navigating the business environment is probably the best way to put it.
Yeah, you touched on something, and I mentioned it in the opening that there is something that is completely out of your control. You can do all the right things as an executive and a business with your team, managing a lot of things, but one thing you have no control over is the weather. So how does a business so dependent on the weather think about that and manage for that uncertainty year to year or even within the season?
Well, we're pretty much all native Oregonians who are working at the resort, and so that means we know how to be prepared, we know how to plan, and we remain flexible and resourceful because, as you said, we don't know what we're going to get really one day to the next, and so we get out in front of it, we innovate. I think snow hauling has been a huge innovation for us, where we actually harvest all the snow in our parking lots and haul it to the lower elevation areas where we need to place snow so we can open early. And when we have extreme weather events, we make important decisions on whether we're going to operate or not, either high wind or extreme cold. If it's not safe for our team, it's certainly not safe for our guests, and so we simply just don't operate on those days.
Yeah. So, another thing you have to contend with as a business executive and your leadership team and the whole team of Mount Hood Meadows, you are not immune from competition. Like most businesses, there's competition in this space. My understanding is the state has about a dozen ski resorts, some of which are your neighbors. They're on Mount Hood, and of course, there are some in other parts of the state. But where do you sort of sit in this ecosystem, and how do you think about what differentiates you from your competition, and also maybe talk a little about how you work together with your competition to support the industry?
Well, yeah, we do. We first and foremost we celebrate competition. Competition makes us better every day. Makes us continue to strive to perform at the highest level we possibly can. I think the ski industry in Oregon is somewhat of a fraternity, and so we share ideas and work together on matters that affect all Oregonians, and try to support each other because a rising tide floats all boats.
Yeah, that's great. Can you talk a little bit about the in-state versus tourist? And I'm throwing this at you without any preparation, but I think this is such a fascinating example of what draws people into Oregon as visitors, and also is just part of the lifestyle of so many people here who live in Oregon. And so, just talk a little bit about how you think about the local market versus the tourist market, if you will.
Well, I think Oregon's natural beauty and our natural resources are one of the best attributes of our state, and many people come to experience, skiing on a volcano, which is a unique thing, even though it's dormant. The Cascade Range is a unique range. We're close to the Pacific Ocean, the largest weather maker on the planet. And as a result, we get, significant snowfall, significant weather events, even when they're extreme and so forth. Speaking for Mountain Meadows, we have the benefit of having significant varied terrain, so guests that accommodates guests to all levels of proficiency in the sport of either snowboarding or skiing or even Nordic. So we get a lot of adventure seekers who come from all over the United States and, in fact, all over the world to experience what recreating in Oregon is really all about. And then for the local market, we have become, I guess, just by virtue of how we operate and our consistency, the mountain home for many locals to come, and recreate as they have time.
Yeah, I think this notion of an ecosystem is really cool. I remember visiting with one business owner who ran a ski shop. So, like, actually the designing custom designs for skis. And he was talking about how tourists would fly to PDX, stop at his shop, place their order, go up to the mountain to ski for, a day or two, and then on their way back to PDX to fly home, sometimes to home abroad, not even elsewhere in the United States. They'd pick up their skis from him. And it really is this, again, this lifestyle and ecosystem that I think is really symbiotic and very cool. Is skiing becoming more popular, less popular, holding steady? And personal question, skiing or snowboarding?
Well, I did snowboard when it became the big thing to do in the late 80s and 90s. But as I got older, I just returned to skiing. I grew up ski racing, on Mount Hood and what have you. And my children all ski, although they snowboarded. So we've kind of gone back and forth as time has gone on. But I primarily ski now.
All right, very good. And it's still, by all accounts that I can tell, a very popular sport.
Yeah, skiing is growing. The numbers nationally reinforce that, and certainly our own numbers reinforce that or support it. And we are seeing also significant interest of new skiers and new snowboarders coming into the sport who want to come and have a just an introductory experience. And the whole idea of converting them into lifelong skiers and riders is part of our mission.
Very cool. Well, we've talked about some of the opportunities, the competitive advantages, the growth in the sport, the natural opportunity with Mount Hood Meadows and Mount Hood itself. But let's talk about a couple of challenges, if you don't mind. First, I'm looking at this pin that you showed me before we got started, and the statement on it, the sort of slogan, if you will, is "Everybody shovels." I want you to tell our listeners about that, and then talk a little bit about your workforce and what they mean to you, but also what challenges you may see in finding workers or retaining workers.
Of course. Well, that pin is really kind of the essence of the culture that we have at Mounted Meadows. That was something that was born out of my mom and dad, and that is that our team is number one and our guests are number two. And so at Mounted Meadows, it is true that everybody shovels. It doesn't matter what your title or position is within the organization. We operate as a team. We look out for each other, and we share our successes, and also are accountable for our failures. And we just keep moving on and try to grow with that culture. And so the pin is just a reminder that that is our culture, and that's how we roll, at Mounted Meadows. And to answer your question about, retaining or finding employees, we found that our culture has played a big role in being able to not only attract but retain employees, because we know that the growth of our employees is really the growth of our organization. So we focus on continual training, on advancement, on knowledge, development and skills development through an individual's professional working career at Mounted Meadows. And this type of, it's almost a master-apprentice type relationship that we've cultivated, and we found this to be beneficial to the company, to our team, and most importantly, to the guest experience.
Very cool. I want to bring up a pretty significant challenge that the industry is facing right now. You've personally engaged on this issue a lot lately, as have many of your colleagues in the industry across the state. But this is Oregon. Oregon has a lot of outlying laws and policies that are unique among the states. But one in particular is a liability law relating to recreational uses. So can you tell our listeners just about that problem, what it means to you, and frankly, directly, why it's a huge threat to the industry and the lifestyle that so many people in the state rely on?
Yeah, I think maybe to get at this issue, it would be good just to do a quick kind of recap of how did we get here. And from the 70s till about 2014, we had legislative support for the enforceability and the efficacy of recreational liability waivers. And this is a waiver that, you sign for pretty much any type of activity, be it high school sports, ice skating, skiing, river rafting, whatever, to do an activity in Oregon. And it never excused the service provider, from gross negligence. That wasn't what it was all about. What it accounted for were the inherent risks of the activity. The fact that pretty much any outdoor activity, or most recreation activities, have an element of inherent risk. Well, that was turned around and basically overturned in the 2014 Oregon Supreme Court ruling of the Bagley case, which was a case at Mount Bachelor. And essentially that reduced the enforceability, almost eliminated the enforceability of liability waivers in Oregon, and was the genesis of this dramatic increase in general liability insurance. So in our case, just say the last 6 years, our experience has been about a 600% increase in general liability insurance. Add to that, since 2019, about a 500% increase in property insurance due to wildfire risk. And you can see how, that has created a significant impact on our financial sustainability. So this is why we tried our best to educate our legislators on the impacts of this, and why we needed legislative relief to basically reinstate the efficacy of liability waivers in Oregon that we had from the 70s to 2014. And I should also add, every Western state around us has enforceable liability waivers. So this has made a situation where Oregon is in the throes of having to increase the cost of recreating to the recreating public in Oregon, which has the resulting impact, of course, of making Oregon less competitive than our surrounding states. I think, this last legislative session was really very telling, where we actually had the votes in the Senate, but the president of the Senate and of the House basically got the bill killed, and we were not able to move forward. So we continue to really struggle, I guess, convincing our legislators that this is an issue, and a very significant issue. And I fear that where we're headed here as time goes on and the cost of insurance continues to rise for rec service providers in Oregon, that this will have the impact of reducing the number of recreation service providers in Oregon, and therefore the accessibility to recreation for the public.
Yeah, and I mean, this problem is so easy to solve, and to run up against the challenges that you and other recreational industry members ran up against was frustrating, to say the least. That's a gross understatement of how that felt, because this could easily be taken care of. So, count us in for continued efforts to help on that from an OBI standpoint, because the competitiveness, the affordability for Oregonians is paramount for us. But also, there's a lot of industry, as we talked about, tied up in recreation, not just on mountains, but in rivers and lakes and elsewhere. So thank you for your leadership on that issue. How are you navigating at least the current season that we're entering into? Because, that session is over. Future sessions are to be determined, but you've got a ski season in the meantime. So what are you doing to navigate currently?
Well, first of all, we were successful after months of complex and intensive negotiation with a variety of carriers, some existing, some new. Many existing carriers don't want anything to do with Oregon, so we've had to court new carriers. We have secured general liability coverage for the 2025-2026 season, so we're good to go for this year. However, we are in the process of implementing, or creating first, and then we'll be implementing some significant operating changes at the resort that will be with us until we can get some kind of legislative relief, because we don't have a choice. We're going to have to make some significant changes that will impact the guest experience, at the resort, as well as pricing. And so far, because of our excellent safety record and so forth, our insurance, we do qualify for insurance, which is helpful. But we do not control how a carrier looks at the state of Oregon in terms of the modeling that they do when they price their insurance coverage. So we've got to be out in front of this. And, this does have the impact of, employment, not only within our company, the number of people that we're able to, afford to employ, because we have to, spend so many more resources on general liability insurance. But it also has downstream impacts to all the businesses that we work with, be it a food provider, a gear manufacturer, fuel, anybody that we work with. This will have downstream impacts. And I think it is also really important that Oregonians understand this, and this is a statement that was made by the Senior Vice President of Safehold Special Risk, who's our insurance broker. He wrote, "It is important to respect the very human fact that no amount of general liability coverage, litigation, dramatic plaintiff testimony, and or financial award will ever overcome the inherent risk generated from the pursuit of recreational activities. It remains the right and responsibility of an individual to evaluate and decide recreation choices that best suit their interests and abilities, and then be accountable for those choices." And this notion of personal accountability and decision making and being accountable for those decisions is certainly something that was ingrained in me as a young man learning to recreate just on Mount Hood, and everyone in my family, but everybody around me. That's just how we rolled as Oregonians, whether we are hunting or fishing or skiing or riding our bikes or hiking or whatever. We all knew the risks, and we were prepared. We prepared to overcome those risks and prepared to be accountable for our choices.
Yeah, well said. Very well said. Same thing. You know, I grew up in a family that spent a lot of time outdoors doing a variety of those things, and we still do today. Love it. But yeah, there is an individual responsibility, and that's what we're talking about here. We're not talking again about waiving all liability, period, full stop. We're not talking about letting companies off the hook for, gross negligence and so this conflation of things that has sort of overtaken the responsibility of the individual for these inherently risky activities is where now Oregon is an outlier, and that's a problem. It's a problem recreationally, it's a problem economically, it's a problem from a standpoint of competitiveness, and as you pointed out, it's putting not just people's weekend activities at risk, but people's livelihoods at risk.
Yeah, I would also say that in addition to the economic impacts of this, this has really impacted the culture of the state of Oregon, where Oregonians are resourceful. They are accountable and people, and they are knowledgeable about how to recreate no matter what the activity is. And this situation has really challenged the culture of our state.
Well, I want to switch back a little bit, and part of what I think allows you to lean in on some of these issues and think so deeply about the company and make the pivots you need to do is you have some flexibility as an independent owner and operator of the company, which I believe has been the case the entire time the company's been in operation. So, and a lot of other ski resorts, I think, operate under consolidated ownership. So they might still be private, but there's more of a consolidated ownership model. One, I'm just curious, have larger operators or others approached you about buying Mount Hood Meadows? And if so, and even if not, what motivates you to stay and remain independent?
Well, we are first and foremost an Oregon homegrown company. We are family held, and we are fiercely independent, and we certainly intend to remain that way. And our culture, our values as an organization and as a group of individuals clearly separate us from the pack, and we're very proud of that. Have we been approached? Of course. We've politely declined to pursue any of those. We believe that we have a bright and vibrant future, and as long as we maintain our culture and our core values, the company will continue to be not only financially sustainable, but an Oregon success story. And we're trying to convince or educate at least our legislators that business is not a bad word, and that for us to be successful, we need legislative support because, believe it or not, you have to have a vibrant business environment to have a vibrant state and a vibrant community. They go hand in glove like teeth in a gear, and you can't have one without the other.
Yeah, that's I think that's a great place to sort of pivot to wrapping up here, because I couldn't have said it better myself, and I say it all the time, so thank you. What is something, before we close out, that we haven't covered today that you wish more people knew about the business that you're in specifically, or just operating a business generally?
I would like to I guess, just say that I think, I look on your website and other websites, and there's no lack of data on the problems, the economic problems that Oregon now faces, and has, I guess, we've kind of put ourselves in this position. So rather than dwell on all that, I look at that and go, you know what? There's nothing but opportunity here. we have an opportunity to grow. We have an opportunity to resolve these problems. And it's going to take strong leadership. It's going to take will. It's going to take that same type of grit and grace that I spoke of earlier that Oregonians have, that they're born with, and it's part of the culture of our state. We don't quit. We don't give up. But we have to understand that there are economic dynamics and disciplines that we have to adhere to be successful. And so if we can do all that, or when we do all that, I think we're going to start to see some material traction here and put Oregon back on the map as not only a great place to live and to raise a family and to educate your family, but an economically vibrant state.
Yeah, again, well said. I'm just going to take this and put it on a loop and take it with me when I give my presentations. I think that's beautifully said. And as a fellow, born and bred Oregonian, you're absolutely right. There are things just in our DNA that come through, and they certainly come through. I have one final question. Asking for a friend, is it too late to learn to ski in your 40s?
Absolutely not.
All right.
Absolutely
All right,
not. I'm actually teaching a friend of mine who we're the same age, so she's in her mid-60s and is learning to ski.
Perfect. All right, I'll pass that on.
And she's loving it.
Good. That's great.
I think the apparel is a big attraction.
Well, their apparel and equipment is, it's also important, I think, to support that sector of Oregon's economy too. So,
Sure.
So there we go. Well, thank you so much, Matthew, for joining me today. And we could talk for hours about the industry, the upcoming season, the challenges and the opportunities for the industry, your business, and for the state as a whole. But we have promised our listeners a relatively short podcast, so we'll wrap it up. I just want to, again, acknowledge the importance of the work that you do in creating jobs and economic activity for the region and the state, both from inside our borders and bringing people from outside into the state. And I want to thank you for joining me here today to talk about some of those challenges and opportunities. Listeners, thanks for tuning in. The Oregon Business Matters podcast is a production of Oregon Business and Industry. Our episodes can be found on all the top podcast platforms. And for more information about these episodes or OBI generally, please visit OregonBusinessIndustry.com. Thank you very much.